That night, rain hammered the town like it wanted to drown everything in its path. I knocked on my mother's door, and the moment the lock clicked open, he threw the first punch. They left me standing on that freezing porch while the doorbell camera, the only thing that knew the truth, mysteriously lost all its data by morning. If your family ever treated you like community property, stay until the end, because that rainy night was just the beginning of a clean, legal revenge plan with no escape. My name is Elena Hart, and I should have known better than to show up at my mother's house at 10:45 p.m. on a Tuesday night. But the documents in my waterproof folder couldn't wait forms to remove Ron's access from Mom's joint accounts. Evidence of loans I suspected he'd taken in her name. The rain hit my windshield like bullets as I parked. My soaked sneakers squeaked against the wooden porch steps, the same ones Ron had fixed last summer using Mom's credit card for supplies he later sold. I knocked. Once. Twice. The porch light flickered that motion sensor Ron installed to keep the family safe. The door cracked open 4 inches. Ron's face appeared, cigarette smell rolling out with the warm air. His construction worker frame blocked any view inside. "House is closed to you," he said, words sharp as glass. "I need to see Mom. It's about her accounts." The punch came fast, his knuckles connected with my cheekbone, spinning me sideways. My hip hit the porch railing. The folder flew, papers scattering into the rain. Then his hands were on my shoulders, shoving hard. I went backward off the steps, landing on the wet grass, my elbow scraping concrete. "Mom!" I called out, seeing her shadow behind Ron. "Mom, please!" She stood there, frozen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Ron's hand moved to the doorknob. "Marjorie, get inside." The door slammed. The deadbolt clicked. I lay there, rain mixing with something warm on my cheek blood from where his wedding ring had cut me. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, took photos of my face, my torn jacket, the scattered papers dissolving in puddles. Called Kayla. "Jesus, Elena, I'm coming. Don't move." While waiting, I gathered what papers I could save. Mr. Dugan appeared on his porch next door, portable umbrella in hand. The retired cop's expression was grim. "Saw the whole thing from my window," he said, helping me stand. "That new camera system I installed last month. It's got a clear angle on your mother's porch." He handed me a USB drive. "Already saved tonight's footage, 9:52 to 10:58 p.m. every second." Kayla's headlights cut through the rain 15 minutes later. In her car. I checked Mom's doorbell camera app on my phone, still had access from when I'd helped set it up. The timeline showed motion detected at 10:46 p.m., but the video itself, file not found. By morning, Ron had his story ready. I know because Brianna, my stepsister, texted me his version. "Ron says you showed up drunk, banging on the door after 11 p.m., demanding money. He says you fell off the porch yourself when he wouldn't let you in. Mom's really upset you'd lie about this." I stared at my reflection in Kayla's bathroom mirror, swollen cheek turning purple, dried blood in my hair, my elbow wrapped in gauze. The USB drive sat on the counter like a loaded weapon. "That's their game," Kayla said, handing me coffee. "But you've got Dugan's footage. You've got photos. You've got my testimony that you were stone cold sober when you called." I forwarded Brianna's text to my new folder labeled Evidence. Then I opened my laptop and started typing Incident Report, October 15th, 10:45 p.m. Ron had made his first mistake. He'd gotten comfortable enough to hit me where someone could see. The mechanism of exploitation didn't start with violence. It never does. Ron entered our lives when I was 14, 2 years after Dad's heart attack. Mom was drowning in grief and bills. Ron was the contractor who fixed our leaking roof for mates' rates, stayed for dinner, then never really left. He was good at fixing things: the sink, the fence, the car that wouldn't start. Each repair came with a lesson. "See, Marjorie, this is why you need a man around." Soon he had copies of our keys, knew our schedules, managed Mom's passwords because technology confuses her. By high school, I'd become the crisis handler. Drive Brianna to soccer at 6 a.m. because Ron needed to sleep off his whiskey. Cover the electric bill, just temporarily. Elena, I'll pay you back Friday. Make excuses when Mom couldn't attend parent-teacher conferences because Ron decided they needed a spontaneous weekend trip she'd pay for. Every Thanksgiving, I cooked for 12 hours while Ron held court in the living room, accepting praise for keeping this family together. Every Christmas, I maxed out my credit card for gifts from Ron and Marjorie, while Ron spent Mom's bonus on tools he'd later pawn. The financial abuse was meticulous. Store cards in Mom's name with Ron as authorized user, cash advances on her credit line for his business ventures, a landscaping company that never landscaped, a renovation service that only renovated his buddy's garage. When I started working at Ravenfield, tracking community grants and auditing budgets, the patterns became crystal clear. Mom, you have $17,000 in credit card debt. I'd shown her last year. Ron handles all that, she'd replied, not meeting my eyes. The gaslighting was an art form. When I questioned a $3,000 charge at Home Depot, Elena's jealous because she's single. When I found Mom's retirement account down by half, your daughter doesn't understand how investments work. Marjorie. When I discovered he'd been stealing her prescription pain medication to sell, Elena's always been dramatic. Remember when she lied about breaking that vase? I never lied about the vase. Brianna broke it, but Ron convinced everyone I did. The system was perfect. Mom, desperate to not be alone, accepted whatever story kept Ron happy. Brianna, hungry for a father figure, became his little spy, reporting my negativity in exchange for concert tickets Mom unknowingly bought. Extended family saw Ron's public performance, the devoted husband at church, the helpful neighbor who'd shovel driveways, the man who'd saved Marjorie from widowhood. Nobody saw the bills hidden in his truck. Nobody heard the 4 arguments when Mom discovered another forgotten loan. Nobody noticed she'd stopped wearing her grandmother's ring. Ron pawned it during a tough month 3 years ago. I kept records, screenshots of bank statements, photos of receipts, a spreadsheet tracking every borrowed dollar never returned currently at $43,000, not counting interest. My childhood bedroom became an archive of their dysfunction. Evidence hidden in old textbook covers and tampon boxes, places Ron would never look. The breaking point wasn't the money. It was last month when Mom called me crying at 11:30 p.m. Ron had shoved her into a wall during an argument about her talking to a male coworker. She had bruises on her shoulders, fingerprints on her arms. Leave him, I begged. And go where with what money he knows everything. Elena, our bank accounts, my social security number, where I work. He says nobody would believe me anyway. That's when I started planning. Not just to expose Ron, but to dismantle the entire framework that let him operate. Every enabler, every blind eye, every "that's just how Ron is" would be forced into the light. The night he punched me wasn't unexpected. I'd pushed too hard, shown up with documents that threatened his control. But now I had what Mom never did. Proof. Video evidence. A black eye that wouldn't fade before people asked questions. Family helps family, Ron always said. He was right. I was going to help my family. I was going to help them by destroying him. The emergency room documented everything. Facial contusion, minor concussion, abrasions on my elbow and hip. The nurse took photographs under fluorescent lights that made my bruises look like purple storms. Domestic violence, she asked quietly. I nodded. The paperwork for a temporary protection order started there at 3:15 a.m. while Kayla held my hand. By noon, I sat across from Detective Morrison, Dugan's USB drive sliding across her desk. She watched the footage twice, Ron's fist connecting with my face, the shove, my body hitting the ground, Mom standing frozen in the doorway. "This is clear assault," Morrison said. "We can arrest him today." "Not yet," I said. "I need 2 weeks." She frowned. "Ms. Hart, he's dangerous." 2 weeks to get my mother financially separated from him. Otherwise, he'll drain everything before the court date. I work in financial compliance. I know how fast money disappears when someone's desperate. Morrison agreed to a temporary protection order with a specific provision Ron couldn't access any joint accounts pending investigation. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. I texted Mom from the courthouse steps. I have a protection order. Ron can't come within 500 feet of me. I need you to revoke his power of attorney. Today. Her response came an hour later. You're tearing this family apart. Brianna's messages were worse. You're so selfish. Ron's been crying all morning. He says you attacked him first, and the video doesn't show everything. Mom's blood pressure is through the roof because of you. The extended family phone calls started by evening. Aunt Carol. Forgive and forget. Elena. Family doesn't involve police. Uncle Jim. Ron called me, explained everything. You've always been sensitive. Cousin Marie. Think about your mother's reputation. I forwarded every message to my lawyer, Avery Locke, whom I'd hired that afternoon using my emergency fund, $6,000 I'd saved expecting this day would come. They're textbook enablers, Avery said, reviewing the messages. But this protection order is just paper if your mom won't cooperate. I drove to Mom's work at 4:45 p.m., catching her at her car. She looked older, grayer, her hands shaking as she unlocked the door. Elena, your face. He did this. Mom, you saw him do it. I didn't see clearly. It was dark, raining. Stop. I placed 2 documents on her car hood. This revokes Ron's access to your accounts. This one freezes the home equity line of credit he opened in your name last month. Her eyes widened. How did you know about... I've been tracking everything for 3 years. Sign these, or I release all of it. Every fraudulent loan, every forged signature, every penny he's stolen. Ravenfield has forensic accountants who'd love to see how Ron used their non-profit designation for his fake charity receipts. You wouldn't destroy him like that. I would destroy him twice as hard if it meant saving you. She signed with a shaking hand. He'll be so angry. Good. Angry people make mistakes. That evening, Ron made his first one. He violated the protection order by calling me 17 times from different numbers, each voicemail more unhinged. You little bitch. You think you've won? I've got dirt on your whole fucking family. Your mom's pills she sells to her friend Linda. That DUI Brianna got covered up. I know everything. I recorded them all, sent them to Morrison and Avery. His second mistake was bigger. He went to my office the next morning, told my boss I was mentally unstable, that I'd been stealing from the family and needed help. Security cameras caught him screaming in the lobby when they wouldn't let him upstairs. Mr. Dugan called that afternoon. Ron was in your mom's garage all morning, loading boxes into his truck. Looked like financial documents. Let him take them, I said. I have copies of everything. The war had started. Ron thought he was fighting to maintain control. He didn't realize I wasn't fighting to win. I was fighting to expose. Every action he took, every threat he made, every attempt at manipulation was being documented, filed, prepared for the moment I'd destroy him publicly. Family helps family, I whispered, organizing my evidence folders. Ron was about to learn what that really meant. The audit began at my kitchen table at 5A. Coffee going cold as I mapped Ron's financial crimes like a forensic accountant preparing for trial. 3 laptops open, one for public records, one for bank statements I'd been secretly photographing for years, one for the spreadsheet that would destroy him. County records showed Ron had filed 4 DBA certificates, Keaton Home Solutions, Veterans First Renovation, Community Builders Iowa, and Helping Hands Construction. None were registered with the state as actual businesses. No tax ID numbers, no licenses, but plenty of invoices made out to elderly neighbors for work never completed. The credit report I'd pulled on Mom with her written permission now showed 23 hard inquiries in the past 2 years. Store cards at Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards, all maxed out within days of opening. Cash advances totaling $38,000, withdrawn from ATMs near the casino Ron swore he never visited. Cross-referencing transactions with Ron's phone location data, which Brianna had unknowingly shared through the family tracking app, painted the picture. January 15th. Mom's credit card charged $900 at Best Buy, while Ron's phone pinged at that exact store. Same time. February 3rd. $2,000 cash advance at 4:13 a.m. Ron's phone at Prairie Meadows Casino until 6 a.m. Mr. Dugan proved invaluable. Been keeping logs since I retired, he said, handing me a notebook. Habit from 30 years on the force. His meticulous records showed Ron's truck at the house during Mom's work hours, loading equipment. Dates matched perfectly with charges on Mom's cards for tools that never stayed in their garage. The fake charity was Ron's masterpiece of fraud. Community Builders Iowa solicited donations for veteran home repairs, but never registered as a 501c3. I found 7 elderly donors who'd written checks thinking they were tax-deductible. Mrs. Patterson, 83, had given $5,000 after Ron fixed her gutters work he'd billed to Mom's credit card while pocketing the donation. Avery reviewed everything, whistling low. This is RICO-level fraud, federal crimes. He's looking at 10 to 15 years if prosecutors want to push it. I don't want him just arrested, I said. I want him exposed, publicly humiliated. I want everyone who enabled him to see exactly what they were protecting. That's when Tessa McCoy entered the picture. The investigative reporter for the Des Moines Register had been following nonprofit fraud for years. We met at a coffee shop downtown, my evidence filling 2 bankers' boxes. Holy shit, she muttered, flipping through documents. This is systemic, but I need more than paper. I need victims willing to talk, video evidence, something visual for the story. I have video of him assaulting me, and I can get the victims to talk. I spent the next 3 days visiting Ron's elderly marks. Mrs. Patterson cried when I showed her Ron's real business record non-existent. Mr. Chin, who'd paid Ron $8,000 for a roof never repaired, had been too embarrassed to report it. He seemed so legitimate, had that veteran's sticker on his truck. Ron never served. I'd verified that through a friend at the VA. 7 victims agreed to go on record. Their combined losses, $63,000. The pawnshop records took more work. Cash transactions don't leave trails, but pawn shops photograph items. I visited 12 shops with Mom's jewelry photos, found 5 matches. Her grandmother's ring, sold 8 months ago for $300. The pearl necklace Dad gave her pawned for $150. Total value of pawned items $12,000. Late Thursday night. My phone buzzed. Brianna, Ron knows what you're doing. He has a lawyer now. Says you're fabricating everything. Says he'll sue you for defamation. I texted back, tell him discovery will be fun. Avery called Friday morning. Ron's lawyer reached out. They want to settle. Drop everything in exchange for him leaving Iowa. No. Elena, be practical. He doesn't get to run. He gets to fall. Publicly. That weekend, I found the final piece. Hidden in Ron's Facebook history, public posts he'd forgotten about were photos from volunteer build days where he posed with hammers and hard hats. Every photo was dated. Every date matched a gambling charge on Mom's cards. He'd been at the casino while posting old photos to maintain his image. I created a timeline, 40 pages of chronological fraud, assault, theft, and lies. Every document annotated, every claim supported by evidence. Irrefutable proof that Ron Keaton was a criminal who'd stolen over $100,000 while wearing the mask of a community hero. Tessa called Sunday night. I've got approval for a feature story, but I need a hook, something immediate. The Volunteer of the Year dinner, I said. Ron's been nominated. He'll be there October 30th, accepting an award for community service. You're kidding. I'm going to destroy him in front of everyone who ever enabled him. And you're going to film it. The Volunteer of the Year dinner was Ron's victory lap, and I let him think he'd already won. For 2 weeks. I went silent, no calls to Mom, No responses to Brianna's guilt trips. No visible legal action. Ron interpreted silence as surrender. His Facebook posts grew bold photos of him helping neighbors, quotes about forgiveness and family unity. He'd submitted his volunteer hours log claiming 800 hours of community service, mostly elderly home repairs paid for with Mom's credit cards. The Des Moines Civic Center ballroom could hold 300 people. October 30th, 7 p.m. Everyone who mattered in our suburban community would be there. City council members, local business owners, church leaders, all the people who'd been telling me to forgive and move on. I bought my ticket under Kayla's name. Tessa positioned her crew as covering local heroes with full access from the event organizers, who had no idea what was coming. Avery filed our civil suit at 4:55 p.m., that day timed so Ron wouldn't know until after the ceremony. The criminal complaint would be filed Monday morning, giving us the weekend news cycle. Mom called me at 6 p.m. Ron wants us all there as a family, to show support. I'll be there, I said. She didn't catch the edge in my voice. Brianna's giving a speech about what Ron means to our family. Perfect. Another witness to his manipulation. I arrived early, watching from the back as the room filled. Round tables with white tablecloths, centerpieces of fake autumn leaves. A stage with a podium and large projection screen. I'd sent the AV technician a USB drive that afternoon, claiming it contained celebration photos for Ron's moment. He'd plugged it in without question. Ron entered at 6:45, wearing his only suit, the one Mom bought him last Christmas. He worked the room like a politician, shaking hands, slapping backs, that practiced humble smile never wavering. Mom followed in his wake, smaller somehow, wearing the same black dress she'd worn to Dad's funeral. The program listed Ron third, after the Literacy Volunteer and Youth Sports Coach Awards. I waited, chest tight, phone recording everything. Mr. Dugan sat 2 tables over, his presence a silent support. 7 elderly victims were scattered throughout the room, invited as my guests, unaware they were about to witness justice. Mayor Reynolds took the stage at 7:20 p.m. Our next honoree exemplifies selfless service. Ron Keaton has logged over 800 volunteer hours repairing homes for elderly residents, asking nothing in return. Ron stood, buttoning his jacket. Brianna beamed. Mom dabbed at her eyes. Please welcome Ron Keaton. Applause filled the room as Ron climbed the stage, waving like he'd won an election. He approached the podium, cleared his throat, began his rehearsed humility. I just believe in helping folks who can't help themselves. The screen behind him lit up. The first image security footage from Dugan's camera. Ron's fist connecting with my face. The shove. Me falling backward off the porch. The timestamp clear, October 15th, 10:47 p.m. The room gasped. Ron spun around, face draining white. That's edited. The next slide. My hospital photos. Black eye, split lip, bruised ribs, medical report visible. Then came the financial evidence. Bank statements on screen showing cash advances at 4 a.m. at Prairie Meadows Casino, followed by Ron's Facebook posts from the same dates claiming to be at volunteer builds, credit card charges for tools, followed by pawn shop receipts for the same items. His fake charity letterhead beside the Secretary of State's business search showing no records found. The room erupted. Chairs scraped back. Someone shouted, "What the hell is this?" Ron grabbed the microphone. "This is a setup. Elena's crazy. She's always been jealous." The screen changed again. Mrs. Patterson appeared in a recorded interview. Ron Keaton took $5,000 from me for repairs he never made. He said it was tax-deductible charity. I'm 83 years old, on a fixed income. Then Mr. Williams, $8,000 for a roof. He never came back after taking the deposit. 7 testimonies played in sequence. Elderly faces, trembling voices, stolen savings. Tessa's cameraman moved closer to the stage, broadcasting live. Ron tried to leave. but found Detective Morrison and 2 officers waiting at the stage stairs. Not for arrest, not yet, but their presence trapped him. Avery stood up from her table, legal documents in hand. "Mr. Keaton, you've been served. Civil suit for fraud, theft, and assault. Criminal charges pending." Mom stood frozen at her table, hands over her mouth. Brianna was crying, her speech crumpled in her fist. The mayor had backed away from Ron like he was contagious. Ron made one last desperate play, pointing at me as I stood. "She's lying. All of this is lies. I helped this family. I saved them." The final slide appeared, in audio wave form. Ron's voice filled the ballroom from his voicemail. "You little bitch, you think you've won? I've got dirt on your whole fucking family." The recording played in full. Every threat, every admission, every unhinged rage. When it ended, the silence was absolute. The silence shattered like glass. Ron lunged toward me, but Morrison stepped forward, hand on her service weapon. "Mr. Keaton, stay where you are." The ballroom erupted. People pulled out phones, recording, live streaming. Someone shouted, "This is insane!" Another voice. I knew something was off about him. The community's script had flipped in 90 seconds. I walked to the stage, steady despite my racing heart. Each step echoed. Ron's eyes tracked me like a cornered animal's. When I reached the podium, I pulled out a single sheet of paper. 3 years ago, I said into the microphone, my voice carrying clear. Ron Keaton told me that family helps family. He was right. I looked directly at Mom. So I helped my family the only way left by showing everyone exactly who they were protecting. Ron snarled. "You vindictive little..." "Mr. Keaton," Morrison interrupted. "You're violating a protection order by addressing Ms. Hart. One more word and you'll be arrested tonight." I continued. "Every person in this room who told me to forgive, to move on, to think about my mother's feelings, you enabled this." I held up the paper. $113,000 stolen, 7 elderly victims, 1 woman hospitalized with injuries, all while you gave him awards. Mayor Reynolds tried damage control, approaching the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's what?" I cut him off. "Pretend this didn't happen. Ron submitted 800 volunteer hours to your office. Every single hour was fraud. Your office never verified anything. How many other predators are you honoring?" Tessa McCoy stood, press badge visible. "Mayor Reynolds, will the city be investigating how someone with no legitimate business license received community service awards?" The mayor retreated. Mom finally moved, walking toward the stage like she was underwater. The room watched her climb the stairs. Approach Ron. For a moment, I thought she might comfort him. Instead, she pulled the car keys from his pocket. "These are mine," she said quietly, then louder. "To the room. The car is in my name. The house is in my name. Everything you stole was mine." Ron grabbed her wrist. "Marjorie, don't do this." That was his final mistake. Morrison moved fast, hands on Ron, pulling his arm behind his back. "Assault. Violation of protection order. You're under arrest." The cuffs clicked. The room exploded with camera flashes. Ron screamed about lawyers, setups, conspiracies, but Morrison and her partner were already moving him toward the exit. He passed our table, and for 1 second, our eyes met. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just held his stare until he looked away. Brianna ran to Mom, sobbing. "How could you let her do this? He's going to jail." Mom's voice was stranger, harder than I'd ever heard. "He beat your sister. He stole our money. He made me small." She looked at Brianna. "And you helped him." "I didn't know." "You knew enough to spy on Elena, to report her movements. For what concert tickets?" The crowd was pressing closer, voices rising. Elderly victims approaching Avery with questions. Church friends backing away from our family like we were infected. Tessa interviewing anyone who'd stand still. I found a side room, pulled Mom and Brianna inside. Mom collapsed in a chair, suddenly looking every one of her 58 years. "The house," she whispered. "How will I pay for the house?" I placed a folder on the table. Fraud victims can file insurance claims. Stolen funds can be recovered through civil suits. Ron's construction equipment, the real stuff he bought with your money, can be liquidated. I opened the folder. "I've started the paperwork." Brianna stared at me. "You planned everything." "For 6 months, since the night Mom called about him shoving her into a wall. But the family, everyone will know." "Good. Shame lives in silence." Ron counted on that. Mom signed where I indicated, hand trembling but determined. "The joint accounts, frozen as of 5 p.m. today. Your new account, in only your name, is already open. Your direct deposit switches Monday." Through the door's window, I could see the ballroom emptying, clusters of people gossiping, shock rippling through our suburban ecosystem. Tomorrow's Register headline was already writing itself. "What happens now?" Mom asked. "Now Ron goes to county jail until arraignment. His lawyer will push for bail, but with elderly victims and assault charges, it'll be high. He'll need a bondsman. Then comes discovery, where every crime gets exposed in detail. Trial in maybe 8 months. Federal charges could follow. And us, we rebuild, without him." Brianna stood abruptly. "I'm sorry, Elena, I'm so sorry. I thought I wanted a dad so bad I didn't see." "I know," I said. And I did. We'd all wanted something badly enough to ignore reality. Mom wanted love. Brianna wanted a father. I'd wanted a normal family. Ron had weaponized those wants against us. The county jail's visiting room smelled like disinfectant and desperation. Ron sat behind reinforced glass at 11A. AIM, Monday. Orange jumpsuit hanging loose on his frame. His lawyer, some strip mall attorney named Garrett, fidgeted beside him. Morrison had called me. Ron wanted to negotiate. "No recording devices," Garrett said immediately. I placed my phone on the table, screen up. "I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to watch him understand he's finished." Ron leaned forward, pressing palms against the glass. "Elena, we can work this out. Family." "Stop." I pulled out a manila folder, pressed pages against the glass. "Know what this is? Your text messages to your buddy Dale about flipping stolen tools. Screenshots from your deleted Facebook messages arranging cash deals. Your casino player's card history showing you there during every volunteer shift." His face went gray. "How did you—" "Your password was Brianna's birthday. You're predictable," Garrett whispered urgently in Ron's ear, but Ron shoved him away. "What do you want?" "Full confession, recorded, every theft, every fraud, every elderly person you scammed, names, dates, amounts. You allocute to everything, plead guilty, and agree to make restitution." "That's 20 years minimum," Garrett protested. "Or," I continued, "we go to trial, where I present 97 exhibits, where Mrs. Patterson testifies about crying when she realized her husband's funeral money went to your gambling, where the jury sees video of you punching me, where federal investigators get involved because you crossed state lines to pawn stolen goods in Nebraska." Ron's jaw clenched. "Your mother needs me." "She can't manage." "Mom's doing fine. Changed the lock Saturday. Hired a real contractor to fix everything you half-assed. Even found your hidden cash stash in the garage ceiling, $12,000 in a toolbox. Thanks for the home improvement fund." That broke him. The cash was his escape fund, his untraceable reserve. "You fucking bitch." "Mr. Keaton!" Morrison's voice came from behind me. She'd been listening from the doorway. "Careful." I stood. "Here's the only deal you get. Full confession by 5 p.m. today. Or Tessa McCoy runs part 2 of her story tomorrow, the one about your fake veteran status. Did you know stolen valor is a federal crime when used for fraud?" Ron erupted, slamming fists against the glass. "You destroyed everything. My reputation. My life. You destroyed yourself. I just turned on the lights." Outside the jail, Mom waited in her car, her sole car now, with Ron's truck repossessed. She looked different, Hair pulled back, wearing her own clothes instead of what Ron approved. Shoulders straight. How did it go? He'll confess. He has no choice. We drove to the house in silence. The garage stood open, Ron's hoarded junk hauled away, Mom's garden tools finally visible. Inside, Brianna was scrubbing years of Ron's cigarette residue off the kitchen walls. "I want it all gone," she said without looking up. "Every trace." At 3 p.m., Avery called. He's allocuting, full confession. The prosecutor's adding elder abuse charges that's another 5 to 10. With everything combined, he's looking at 25 to 30 years minimum. Good. "Elena, you know he'll probably die in prison. He's 53. Good," I repeated. That evening, we sat for dinner at the cleaned table first time in 3 years without Ron's presence looming. Mom had cooked, actually cooked, not just heated Ron's demanded meals. Brianna was quiet, processing. "I've been thinking," Mom said suddenly, "about Dad, how he would have handled Ron." "Dad would have seen through him immediately." "No," Mom shook her head. "Your father trusted everyone, but he would have protected us. The second Ron raised a hand, your father would have ended it. You protected us, Mom. Finally." She started crying then, 3 years of suppressed tears. I let him hurt you, my own daughter. He hurt all of us, but we're free now." My phone buzzed. "Tessa, story's gone viral. 3 million views. FBI's opening an investigation into similar contractor frauds. You started something." I showed Mom. She read it twice, then did something I hadn't seen in years. Smiled, really smiled, not the performed expression Ron demanded. "You know what I want to do," she said. "I want to paint the house. Ron always said colors were wasteful. I want yellow walls and blue shutters and a red door." "We'll start tomorrow," Brianna said. That night, alone in my apartment, I sat with the weight of what I'd done. Not guilt, never guilt, but the strange, hollow feeling of a war ended. Ron was in a cell, would stay in a cell, would possibly die in a cell. His enablers were scrambling to distance themselves. His victims would receive restitution. My phone showed 17 messages from extended family. I deleted them unread. They'd chosen their side when they'd preached forgiveness over justice. They could live with that choice. Tomorrow, Mom would file for divorce. Tomorrow, Brianna would start therapy. Tomorrow, another of Ron's victims would come forward, then another. But tonight, for the first time in 3 years, I slept without keeping one ear open for danger. The monster was caged. The house was quiet. The war was over. The rain started at 6 p.m., just like that night 1 year ago. But this time, I drove toward it instead of away. Mom had called Ron was being transferred to federal prison tomorrow, and she needed help clearing the last of his things from the garage. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of us. The house looked different now. Yellow walls like Mom wanted, blue shutters that caught the fading light. And yes, a red door that Ron would have called attention-seeking. Security cameras at every angle, motion sensors that actually worked, new locks that only 3 people had keys to Mom, Brianna, and me. I parked in the driveway where Ron's truck once claimed dominance. The garage door stood open, boxes labeled "Evidence Do Not Destroy" lined against one wall, waiting for federal investigators. Everything else would burn tonight: old clothes, his papers, the lawn chair he'd held court from while others worked. Elena. Mom stood in the doorway, no longer the shadow who'd watched Ron hit me. The divorce had finalized 6 months ago. She'd gained 15 pounds back, her face no longer gaunt with stress. "Thank you for coming." We worked in comfortable silence, dragging boxes to the burn barrel out back. Brianna arrived at 7, bringing sandwiches and 3 years' worth of apologies I'd already forgiven. Together, we fed Ron's legacy to the flames receipts for things he'd stolen, photos where he'd inserted himself into our family, the world's best dad mug Brianna had bought him, desperate for approval. At 8:30, everything was ash except the evidence boxes. We stood on the back porch, rain starting to fall heavier, washing smoke from the air. That's when we heard footsteps on the front porch, heavy and deliberate. My body remembered trauma before my mind did. Muscles tensing, phone already in hand. Mom grabbed Brianna's arm. We crept through the house, peering through the front window. Ron stood on the porch. For one impossible second, I thought I was hallucinating. He should be in federal custody, should be behind bars, should be anywhere but here. He wore civilian clothes, jeans, work boots, that same jacket from the night he'd hit me. His hands were at his sides. No visible weapons, but Ron's fists were weapons enough. Call 911. I told Brianna, but I was already moving, already opening the door before logic could stop me. Some confrontations can't be avoided, only faced. "You're supposed to be in custody," I said through the storm door's glass. Ron smiled, that predator's grin I'd learned to fear. "Transport delay, paperwork error. Got 12 hours before they process the correction." He stepped closer. 12 hours to set things right. "Leave, or I call the police." "Already did," Mom said behind me, phone in hand. "They're coming." Ron laughed, bitter and cold. 5 minutes away at least. Lots can happen in 5 minutes. He was right. In 5 minutes, he could destroy us all. But I wasn't the same person who'd stood helpless on this porch a year ago. I pushed open the storm door, stepped onto the porch, into the rain. The same porch, the same rain, but not the same Elena. "You want to hit me again?" I asked, voice steady. "Go ahead. The cameras are recording. The neighbors are watching. I saw curtains move in 3 houses. Your 12 hours of freedom become 12 additional years. So please, Ron, take your shot." He lunged forward, then stopped. Because behind me, Mom and Brianna had stepped out too. And behind them, Mr. Dugan stood in his doorway with his phone raised, recording. Mrs. Patterson was on her porch despite the rain. 3 other neighbors had emerged, all watching, all witnessing. "You destroyed me," Ron whispered. "No," I said. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone saw it." Sirens in the distance, getting closer. Ron's face cycled through rage, desperation, defeat. He turned to Mom one last time. "Marjorie, please." "My name," Mom said clearly, "is Mrs. Hart, and you're trespassing." The police cars pulled up, lights painting the rain red and blue. 4 officers this time. They knew Ron's history. As they put him in cuffs for the last time, he stared at me through the rain. "This isn't over." "Yes," I said. "It is." They drove him away, taillights disappearing into the storm. Mom, Brianna, and I stood on the porch, our house, our life reclaimed. The rain washed over the steps where I'd bled, the railing I'd hit, the ground where I'd fallen, all of it cleansed, all of it ours. "I'm proud of you," Mom said quietly. "Your father would be too." We went inside, locked the red door, and sat together in the kitchen. Ron would never enter again. No more looking over our shoulders, no more walking on eggshells, no more accepting abuse as the price of family. The rain stopped at midnight. By morning, Ron would be in federal prison, where consecutive sentences meant he'd never taste freedom again. The house was quiet except for our breathing, our healing, our hard-won peace. Justice doesn't always come wrapped in satisfaction. Sometimes it comes in small moments, Mom laughing again, Brianna applying to college without fear, me sleeping through the night. Ron took 3 years from us. We took the rest of his life from him. The scales didn't balance, but they were correct. The porch light stayed on all night, a beacon that said, "We survived. We won. We're still here." And in the morning, the sun rose on a house where no one had to be afraid anymore. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your experiences matter, and sometimes sharing them is the first step toward healing.